It's been so cold the last few days that I haven't come up here. If you look, the ice on this barrel is 2 inches thick, and it's cold today, but it's not as cold as it has been. Good morning. I've come up to the allotment this morning to test the acidity of my soil and, if necessary, to correct it. And for that purpose, I brought this gadget, which is an acidity meter, really. I brought some lime, which I shall tell you more about later. And I brought my trowel, with which I will distribute the lime around the plot. Now, this meter that I'm using is really only going to be able to measure the acidity of the soil. It's not going to, it can't detect alkalinity. But my soil is not going to be alkaline. It's not that kind of soil. And it's not going to be very acid either. It was okay last year, and acidification is quite a slow process. So this meter will give me an accurate enough reading. It'll tell me that the soil is a little more acid, and I'll correct that with the lime. But it is possible, if you're a commercial grower, or if you're a chemist, if it's important to you, you can test the acidity of your soil very accurately by taking samples of the soil, liquefying them, making a solution, and testing that chemically with various grades of litmus paper. And then you can calculate exactly how much lime or otherwise you need to correct the pH of your soil. But that doesn't really matter to me. I just want a rough idea. If it's slightly acid, I'll add some lime. And if it's slightly acid again next year, I'll add some more lime. And I only need to be roughly right. So, let's give it the acid test. Now, I switched my meter onto pH because it measures other things as well, and I stick it into the soil about 4 to 6 inches, I think, or something like that, and I'll leave it for a few minutes and see if I get a reading. As I suspected, the meter has hardly moved. I'll try the same thing in a couple of other places, and then we'll get an average reading. But as I suspect, it's not really very acid, and it hasn't changed much since last year, so let's give it another try. I've taken readings in several places in the allotment now, and they've all come back bang on neutral, so there's no need for me to add anything to the soil. It's fine. But I'll tell you about lime anyway, because this stuff here, this is what I would use if I needed to. It's basically crushed chalk or limestone, and mainly it's calcium carbonate with a few other trace elements according to where it's come from. Now, you could use other things. You could use sodium carbonate, anything which neutralizes acid, but calcium carbonate is cheap and it's freely available. There's plenty of limestone and chalk around these parts. So what you do with the lime is you sprinkle it onto the surface about a trowel to a couple of square meters, something of that sort, and you allow it to percolate down into the soil over a period of time. Ideally you would do it in late autumn, early winter, when you're digging over the allotment, and then it would be ready for planting in spring. Well, I thought that was a bit disappointing in a way. I'd like to have shown you how I spread the lime around, but there's no need. And it wasn't a completely wasted journey here. I now know that the pH of my soil is near enough neutral and that my plants will be happy next year. So until next time, I'll see you.